There's this concept that I wrote in my book, Iron Triangle, when you have product, engineering, and design working united to build the solution. So that tension is important, but that's the Iron Triangle. It's strong and doesn't break, and it's important to have the tension. But now when you have the CEO playing that side of the triangle, what happens is, with time I learned, just zoom out, see where you're going. If you don't zoom out, you're putting a lot of energy to propel the boat to a direction that's not where you want to be. And having a designer, the formation of the Iron Triangle will help you, I guarantee.
If you veer off 1 degree in the wrong direction, down the line that's so far off whatever your original path was, just keep going down that flow. And you'd never have the option to reset because there's too much on stake.
When you are complaining about something not working, what alternatives are you bringing to the table to fix it? What are you doing for it? Because just bringing me problems, yeah, sure, that's easy, but can you do that?
Entrepreneurs are always looking for the quick win, the quick exit, the quick payday. A lot of people are like, oh, do this and then, sell in 2 years. I'm like, that's very unrealistic. They're not ready for the 5-10 year journey that's going to take to build a successful, profitable company. Don't do it for an outcome. Do it for the journey, because the journey is what you're going to be doing most of the time.
And you have to enjoy the journey because it's a long one.
100%.
It's a long one.
But thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Funds and Founders. This weekly show is tailored for Austin founders navigating the early stages of their entrepreneurial journey. I'm your host and fellow Austinite, Abhinav Sinha. If you're looking for the motivation and the insight needed to build a successful company, you're in the right place. Today we have on Alberto. He started his career as an engineer in the early 2000s. You've had various engineering and architect roles at companies like IBM, Kaplan, Amplify, OnDeck. You were the head of engineering at companies like Schoolology, Power School Group, and LaunchStarter. After COVID, you authored a book called Building and Managing High-Performance Distributed Teams. And most recently, you're the CTO of a company called HireVue.
That sounds like me.
Welcome to the show. One thing I wanted to get started and kicked off is you've had a very long engineering career across various size companies, various size teams. What's one of the biggest differences you see as an engineering leader from having to lead a smaller, more agile team to a more larger corporate big company? What would you say is 1 or 2 key differences?
The problems or the challenges are very similar.
Okay.
The difference, I always like to make analogies with boating, is it's a small boat, way more maneuverable than a cargo ship.
Yeah.
They have the same principles and fundamentals, but to move like a big cargo, it takes a lot more energy, even to move 1 degree to right or left.
Yeah.
While the smaller one, everything that you do, the impact is a lot larger. So I think one of the things is if you are trying to build the culture of empowerment, the culture of belonging, what happens is in a large organizations, everything takes longer.
Yeah.
Everything takes a little bit more time. And then what happens with the founders is, or smaller companies sometimes, is you have the empowerment, but it's very easy as well to many times to have people just burned out.
Yeah.
Because you have to be wearing many hats. So I think that's one of the key differences. In a smaller company, you have to wear so many hats and be okay with it. And then in a larger organization, you have to be okay with things taking a lot longer to actually happen.
Yeah.
I like to say patience is a virtue. So you test your patience a lot more in a large organization than in a smaller organization. So that's probably one key thing. A second, probably in a smaller organization, if you are a mission-driven person, join a startup with a purpose, you probably gonna be a lot happier when compared when you're in a bigger organization.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you cannot be passionate about a larger organization or the product or the purpose, but it's a lot harder to connect with the purpose, I would say.
Just one learning question. This is more for my interest. As a CTO, head of engineering, How hands-on are you with getting stuff done, pushing code out versus how much more high level and orchestration?
I like to be very hands-on because for me, and I would explain what hands-on actually means. There's different levels of being hands-on.
Yeah.
But that's how I earn the respect from anyone in the team, regardless of the size.
Makes sense.
Now being a CTO of like 170 engineers versus, long starter. When I started, I was the 5th on the engineering team.
Yeah.
So my hands-on is a lot more on orchestrating the processes, but I write the processes for how should the code get from your local dev machine all the way to production.
Full pipeline.
The full pipeline. How is structuring that? I'm hands-on up to today's day.
Okay.
Now, Alberto writing code, probably not the best usage of my time.
Yeah.
Not where I become like too expensive and probably not as good as like many of my engineers. But, if we need to talk about writing resilient code, like writing scalable code, like testable code, all those practices and processes, I'm hands-on in that regard.
Yeah.
Because that is kind of like riding a bike, and it never gets old. The principles of writing good code is the same way before AI, way before one day I start coding in PL1 COBOL.
Okay.
The principles from that to like more modern language, I wouldn't say all the same, but very similar.
Yeah. And I would also say that as an engineer, there's like an inherent problem solving knack that folks like, right? There's a reason folks tend towards engineering. Mm-hmm. And something that excites me is more, hey, you come to me with a problem. I want to figure out a good way to solve this. I may not be the best person to tell you to do it in Python versus Node versus whatever, but on the approach side of, hey, what's the best way to solve this particular problem, figure out a nice scalable or solution based on the context. There's a lot of context, but I feel like that's something that engineers don't really ever lose or get bad at because you like the problem solving aspect of it.
You asked me like earlier, like what the difference between a smaller company and a larger company. One thing that also doesn't change is exactly what you're talking about. It doesn't matter much if it's like technology A, B, or C, but the aspect of collaborating, avoid working silos. Like in a smaller startup, you have to do everything and then you have to make like quicker decisions many times. You rush some steps to get the code out. Yeah. Where like in a larger, you have like a lot more of checking and balances on the way.
100%.
And the extremes are where the mistakes happen and the biggest challenge, like finding the balance, as everything else in life, finding the balance of not too much process and like not too little process. Yeah. You can have like a smaller organization and be very bureaucratical and not moving stuff. Yeah. And you may have like a larger organization that go fast. So it's not, but it tends to have like a lot more check and balances one and another. But the engineering part of it, it's not much about like the technology A or B or C. It's like how you collaborate to make sure that quality code gets to the customer hands, but adding the value that will move the business forward.
100%. Earlier, you mentioned culture, establishing culture. Can you quickly define for folks listening, what do you consider engineering culture? And then what's sort of your go-to way of establishing the right culture and what that is for you?
We hear a lot like, oh, we don't have a good culture, or we want to create a good culture. We're like, but what is culture? Yeah, I will just share my own definition. Culture is like when it gets Sunday night and you think about the next day and you're excited about that. When you wake up, I want to actually be with those people. I want to work with them. I'm actually have this challenge that I'm excited to put behind me. So a culture is a place where you want to go because you feel part of it. And what is the opposite of it? Oh my goodness, tomorrow is Monday, can't believe. So that's
you're dreading the like Monday morning stand-up.
Yeah, like you don't enjoy the processes, you don't enjoy the people, you don't even know like, like you careless about the product. So the culture is like a place where people are happy.
Yeah.
And of course, and what does that need?
What does the business need from?
Yeah, and then you think like people should feel like being home, like be treated with respect, with transparency. We all know where we go. We are together on the good days and also like on the not good days. And that's how we start building the culture. But to answer just your question about what the culture, in my opinion, it's a place where people want to be. They share a collective goal.
Nice.
And they are united to actually achieve that goal together.
I feel like one challenge is a lot of companies establish, okay, here's what we want to do. Here's what our culture is. Here's what, the team's trying to do. How do you ensure that someone joining the team fits into that, first of all? And how do you ensure that the culture stays the same or stays positive as the team is growing? Because as you add more people, more parts, more teams, more moving pieces, stuff changes, especially when you start going remote and you start doing distributed. That's another variable where I've never worked with you, but we're 2 cities apart, but we have to work like we've been working together for I don't know how long. How do you think about that when scaling and growing a team?
So after pandemic, people start to think a lot more like, how does that actually impact my culture? Because we used to go to the office every day. We had our routines, and then one may say that it was easier to build a culture.
Yeah.
In my opinion, not necessarily.
Okay.
I've been building distributed teams for many, many years, way prior to the pandemic. And I always invested on the human connections.
Got it.
We may not see every day together, but it's important that myself, my teams, my managers, everyone on the team get some time, quality time together throughout the year. It may be a couple of days, a few days, in a whole year.
And when you say distributed, just to clarify, you mean located in different time zone, different cities?
That's different time zone, different cities, different countries, different continents.
Yeah.
But making the effort and the investment to put people together at least once a year, it's, in my opinion, it pays it off, any investment that you may want to consider. And that may establish your culture. We see a couple of days a year, but when we do I work in a company that we would do in January, third week or so of January, we would do a week together. And we would allow people only to travel arriving on Monday and leaving on Friday. So we don't even ask for people to be actually taking time away from their families.
Yeah.
So on those small things, you start polishing the culture. Because if we say that, hey, we respect your own time,
yeah,
so we will allow business hours for you to travel.
Yeah.
Sounds like a very small thing to do, right? But that starts define the identity of the company, the culture of the team. You're sending a message that's super important, the human connections. I'm making you a big ask, but not actually leave your family behind on a Sunday, as an example, to be there on Monday. So it's possible building the culture remotely. Can be more challenging, but if you think about and you just go back to the basics of humanizing the environment, I think you can nail it.
Nice. Do you think culture is a top-down notion, or is it a bottom-up, or a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both, because it's not only for the company to do the culture, it's also for it's everyone's. That's where the company values comes in.
Yeah.
And then if you have people that live and breathe that, the result of that interaction, that dynamic environment, is what's going to define the culture. I work for a company that had the company values. One of the company values was about collaboration. Interesting enough, one of the co-founders of the company would completely ignore that, would just do things in silo, because he was the co-founder, he had the technical knowledge, he would just actually go and ignore all the process and push code through. I started having issues with it. So it's part of our core values to actually collaborate with each other. If you actually just ignore, but it's faster. Faster is not necessarily better.
100%.
Right? And then there's that saying that if you want to go faster, you go alone. If you want to go further, we go together.
Yeah.
I actually said that many times, and because that is the opposite of actually building a good culture, because the rule must apply to everyone. But we are talking about like the building the culture. You can also like mess up with the culture if you don't follow like the company values and on your day to day.
Makes sense. You mentioned investing in, human face-to-face for getting a distributed team. What's your go-to? So like I've done a bunch of offsites with the companies I've worked at. Offsites generally tend to be a mix of like, hey, there's going to be like a big planning session. I feel like half the team is phased out during the planning sessions because they're either not involved or it's not engaged enough, and then half of it is partying. But what do you think is a really good investment of time and resources when you bring the team together? How do you foster that connection? And the reason I ask is I was at Indeed for a while and we were in person and then we went remote. And I feel like the only reason I was able to work well with the team remote was I knew the team. I knew how they worked. I knew how they operated. I knew who I could ping on Slack. I knew who was a, hey, don't trouble me during the day kind of person. There were some people who were like, hey, put a meeting on my calendar if you want to talk. And so understanding how folks worked allowed me to better work with that team. But when you're only meeting for a week, a year, how do you make the best of that situation?
I guess we agree that it has to have some structure.
Yeah.
You cannot just put people there and expect, what am I doing here? The one thing that I tried at the end of that week, we all look back. Was it worth or not that time together? And you're absolutely right. If you were in the office and then you went distributed, you knew people already. So it is easier. I agree with that. So if you have like a completely distributed team, my previous company, we didn't even have an office. We have like a PO box. Like this company now at HireVue, we do have an office at the headquarters in Salt Lake, but everyone is distributed. So my point is, for that week, if I have to do something like that, is like I would try to do everything that we cannot do while we are remote. Example, can we do planning sessions remote? Yes, we can.
Yeah.
So that is less priority than other activities. So there are like many team building activities. One of my favorites is like you do like some trivia games about the people itself.
Nice. I like that.
What you like, what you don't like, places that you've been.
Yeah.
Crazy things that maybe you consider that you have done in your life that maybe people don't know. And then you start just doing like kind of like a gamification of things about yourselves. Think about themselves. That after they leave that exercise could take 2-3 hours, half a day, an entire day with activities like that. At the end of like that first day, for instance, they would look back. I didn't know that you actually are passionate about soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played that. Oh, you played that out, in different countries, whatever. And then now they are talking about something that goes way beyond work.
Yeah. And it also fosters the relationship after, right? So if you find a commonality, you'll now make a Slack channel, you start pinging each other, hey, did you do that? Did you watch that?
Yes.
So
and that could have so many, that human connection. If you have people only talk about work all the time, on the long run, you're actually missing the opportunity to solve challenge or will just make like the work conversation a lot easier. People will get agreements easier because they're going to correlate with other things. It literally removes so many barriers. So I think, I'm not saying that if you're going to go for like an offsite, you cannot do planning. But don't start with like the plan. Don't start with the prioritization like day one. Allow the time for people to connect. Have you heard about like the concept of unconference?
It's the idea of like not having bringing people together, but not for an agenda, right?
Yeah, you do have, exactly. You do have topics. AI could be one. Scalability of our applications can be another one. Like how could we innovate for our customers could be another one. And then during like a second day could be like an unconference where you have those topics and then you get like people from sales. I've been hearing a lot about like this. How can we actually innovate in our product? And that's where like the ideas and the alignment comes throughout the team. Yeah. So there's like many different techniques, approach. Yeah. But yeah, that will help make that week a little bit more structured and productive.
Yeah. Again, this is more just a selfish question for me to learn. But when you come into a large established company as a new CTO, what does your first couple of weeks look like? Are you getting a lay of the land? Are you coming in, switching things up? Like when you come into an already established setting, culture, process, environment, like there's already things in motion. So as a new CTO, what does your initial couple of days look like? What are you tackling? How are you fitting in?
That's very fresh in my mind. This is going to be starting tomorrow, my week number 6 on this new job as CTO at HireVue. And I can tell you exactly what I did. When you start like in a job like this, of this level of maturity and growth, your first day is not actually your first day. You have to start before than that. Several weeks before my first day, I start talking with the CEO. I start getting like an understanding how the teams are organized, names, pictures. It's literally putting on the table and trying to map what's going on. This is way before your first day. Preparation is key. When the first day came, I already had a couple of stakeholders, a few stakeholders flying to Salt Lake City. I arrived at on Sunday, Monday morning, 9 o'clock local time. I already had like my computer set up. 30 minutes into it, I had a meeting with the entire team. Everyone. People in Eastern Europe, people in Europe, Americas. I want to give a name and a face to everyone. I'm Alberto, I'm the new CTO. Here's like my leadership style. And to start with, I love to be with everyone on the ground working together. So there's no right or wrong questions. I just want to create this relationship with you. Ask me. So I talked for 5 minutes and I gave 55 minutes for people to ask questions so they know me better. So that's how I started.
Nice. And were those questions by the employees more personal, more professional? I'm just curious what someone asks you.
People ask like what I like to eat. Nice. And I said, I'm a steak lover, but I eat everything, no allergies. So to sharing a little bit of the challenge that they are facing. Alberto, how do you think about like the way that we are organized as a team? And I was very honest. And I said, like, I think we have an opportunity here to be making a few moves and organize the team instead of like the formation be 4-3-3 kind of stuff. Like we're going to do like, like more in the midfield, like a little less in attack, and then we're going to win. As any other sport, you have formations. And why? And people, wow, that makes sense. At the end of that hour, I had so many questions. My Slack just didn't stop. Like I got like dozens of questions after that. At the end of that first day, it was a really long day. I made sure that I actually replied to every single message. Yeah. And it doesn't matter which position you have in the team. Every position is important.
100%.
And then acting accordingly and giving the time that people deserve. You're actually what? Building the culture. Wow, this leader, it's with us. It's answering my questions like directly.
It's approachable, it's reachable. It's not like 7 levels up and yeah.
And then every day I would take as much as time. It's been exhausting. It's like really long days, but that's what leaders do until they have like things working well.
Yeah.
So week 3, I made an org change.
Nice.
The people that would get affected, what is the easiest thing to do? Layoffs. If you're doing like an org chart, there's people that don't fit, you let people go. That's what companies do. I talk with every single person that would be affected because those roles would be different. Guess what? Really great people. It's just that the position, the titles are like off, like the job descriptions are not aligned with what people are doing. So I took the time individually, one by one. And no one was let go. It was just positioning them in the right place. And I feel proud. I go, when I I go to bed and put my head on the pillow. I feel really good about that. So that intimacy of knowing what people do, understanding where the boat is going and trying to position them better, then these people, they talk. And I say, wow, I like it. And lead by example is actually doing, remember we talk about like being hands-on?
Yeah.
I'm hands-on on like implementing, writing stuff, like everything that I say before I even propose a change. All the definitions and like with colorful diagrams and showing like this is what's going to make us successful. So starting a new job as a CTO of like a large organization, it is indeed a mix of understanding what's out there and be confident that the change that you're going to make is going to be better for everyone. Nothing is written set in stone. And I say like, whatever brought us up to this point, I guarantee you is not going to take us to the next level. So we need to change. If you are not okay to change, then come to talk with me. We can see what we can do. But maybe it's not the right place, or maybe you're not on the right place, on the right team. But that's a little bit about what is this to start like in a company as a CTO.
And how do you juggle? So you have goals, expectations. Other leaders are like, hey, you're coming in, we need this delivered, that delivered. So how do you juggle the, hey, we got to deliver, push stuff, but also make these like core changes at the same time? And how do you balance it? Or do you say, hey, let's have, lower KPIs or smaller goals while you're making the changes? Like, is there a right balance there of?
One of the persons on the team asked me the question, is the organization okay with the slowing down? Because we're going to have to make all these changes. We're going to have to replace the turbines while we're flying.
Yeah.
Are we okay to actually just move slower? Here's what, very, very, very similar question. And we will not go slower. That's the point. Organizing ourselves will make us better. Yeah. Let me give you like one example. It's happening right now. We just started Q2. We have like a bunch of initiatives that we want to start in Q2. I'm still learning about the initiatives, but I ask like, what are the initiatives that everyone in product engineering are doing? Not easy to find out. We have 4 different ticket systems. There's like initiatives that engineering is doing that product doesn't know. There's initiative that product is actually planning for like this group of people to do, but they are busy doing other critical. There's technical strategic work and there's feature strategic work.
Yeah.
I said, we don't have a single source of truth for the roadmap. Like, what's the basic of Kanban? Limit work in progress. For like the team, the ideal number of concurrent number of initiatives, it's 18. We could have actually working 18 initiatives at the same time. Only for the engineers, we are actually 47. Wait a minute, Alberto. 18 to 47? Said, yes, we are doing a lot more than what the team can actually handle. How do we came up with that number? I have like in my methodology, I talk this about in my book as well, like the team formation, how teams should be organized. I call delivery teams, not agile team, not sprint team, delivery teams. Why? Because they must deliver it. They must be connected with the company goals. But just by doing 40 plus initiatives when your capacity is like 18, what does that tell us? We are doing a little bit of everything, but not actually completing things. Yeah. And that is slowing us down.
And probably cutting corners to get stuff over the line.
Absolutely. And then the shortcuts and like the band-aids that you have to put all over the place is not pretty.
Yeah.
So that's not beneficial for the company, not beneficial for individuals or as a team, because people get burned out. Everyone is super busy. It's dysfunctional. It is dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And I'm not including initiatives from our InfoSec group that you can put like another 15. And for our cloud operations, they had like about like 20 initiatives. So if you sum 40 plus 20 plus 15 and your max is 18, and then like you have security pulling one perspective, then you have engineers pulling for another perspective, then you have product pulling to another perspective, but it's the same group of people working. So now going back to the original question, if how do we deal, like, well, first thing is like Make the invisible work visible.
100%.
Just put all the cards on the table. Organize all that work. Now we can talk about it. Let's prioritize. Do we really need to upgrade this framework now? Oh, it's end of life, December of this year. T-shirt size is small. Maybe we don't need to do that in Q2. We can do that like in Q3 and that would be fine. So we don't need to do that right now. In this past weeks, I got like, Alberto, as we are organizing these delivery teams, are you okay to have like one person working on one initiative? I said, by definition, a team of one is not a team.
Yeah.
No, you can't. Why you can't? Because how are you going to be doing the reviews? Oh, somebody else can do, but now it's an interrupt of someone that has no context. Like, so.
And then the review is also lower quality because
it's a lower quality. And then like the code itself, like, has become like a much larger change at once. So like there's so many things that can go wrong. So establishing the definitions from the get-go, what is the team, what's the team formation, what's the number of initiatives that you, and then you can actually start measuring like, how long does it take from point A to point B? You can do like and this is not like reinventing the wheel. This is limit work in progress. I think that's like one of like the area of focus that smaller organization or large organizations struggle. It's limited the work in progress and having focus. Context switch, it's very expensive for any human, regardless who you are, where you came from.
Yeah.
How can you create an environment for your teams to have focus? That's what's going to move the organization faster.
I like how passionately you talk about this stuff because I feel like you've both faced it in various capacities, plus you enjoy the process of, like, I feel like at the end of it, if you look at it, it's like a well-oiled machine.
I use that term a lot.
Yeah.
Very oiled machine.
Yeah. I like that. One thing I wanted to just get your opinion on is, what's your take on engineering and product being under the same leadership or different leadership? Because I know a lot of companies work very differently. Like sometimes both PMs and engineers report to the same person. Sometimes they're very different orgs and they act as stakeholders for each other. Do you have a preference? Do you have an opinion on what makes the most effective team in this situation?
If I have a preference, yes, I do. And I also have an opinion. I think it depends on the stage of the company. Okay. If you're like in the early days, I think I've seen successful product engineering, being one person leading like product engineering.
Yeah.
When I joined Schoology, we did have like, my predecessor was one person doing both. And he was able to do like a very good job from point A to point B. But as the company grows, I find that it's really hard to have that one person. Because like product management, it is a discipline that it's a full-time job and it's not easy.
Yeah.
Same as an engineering leader. If you have one and maybe you're actually missing the opportunity to do more in-depth aspects of each of one of these disciplines. If you talk about product management, you have product management, you need to understand the market, like what's your tangible address market. You need to understand your customers. You have design. Product design is under product. You have research. You have you have to run surveys. You test. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, and then there's project management, which is a characteristic in my teams. It's not only from product, but engineering also have to do project manager. In my teams, I don't have Scrum Masters and project managers in general. I think teams need to be able to self-report and self-organize. But, and then the engineering side, as an engineering leader, like all the process, like to build a very oiled machine requires a lot of energy. You talk about my passion. That's how I lead. That's who I am. So people feel the energy. If you don't have like that energy, you cannot ask for people to have that.
Yeah.
So now if you're like the same leader doing, how are you going to be doing that? It becomes really, unless you are very hands off, which at that point is a choice for the company as well. It's a choice for maybe the stage and the moment. And getting like a product and an engineer to be on the same page, it's a hard job for a CEO to find.
100%.
Because if you have like a product person and an engineer person that's the opposite, what they're going to be doing? They're going to be
Fighting a lot.
They're going to be working silos. And now you have an engineering roadmap and a product roadmap. And then eventually you're going to realize that that's just not, we're going to go full circle on the conversation that we just had before. So from my experience, the preference would always have like someone that is good in product and someone that is good at engineering, and having your head of product and engineering being just separate human beings.
The reason I ask is I also feel like eventually being able to find effective engineering leaders and product leaders is a slightly different skill set.
Absolutely.
So if you're one person who's leading both, you're going to look for mixed qualities in everyone.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's not the best for that discipline, right? But no, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. Product as a discipline on its own, people think, hey, you should be more technical. Not like there's so many opinions on how to run a product org. But if I'm assuming it's going to be a very technically driven product org because the person making the decisions is looking for those skill sets, and it's going to affect how you build the org.
You're absolutely right. If the person has a little bit more of like a product-driven experience and mindset, then engineering is going to be lacking some of like and vice versa. If it's someone that is like a little bit more technical, now you're going to be missing the opportunities of like, that product could actually help the organization grow. So one way and another is like you're going to be not as effective as you could. If I had to recommend for anything to founders, if they're debating that, is to have two people. But then, of course, there's always the budget. There's always, if it's a SaaS software, you have to invest on product engineering.
100%.
It's, that's not where you want to save.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of early stage folks, they start out as the CEO being both the CEO and the CPO.
Correct.
And then they'll get a tech person or a tech co-founder who's like driving implementation. And then they figure product out. And at some point they're like, hey, I need a product person. But sometimes the CEO is like, no, I know this product too well. I want to be the product person. Yeah. And again, you're splitting responsibilities between being a good CEO and a good CPO. And you always sway one side or the other.
I was giving like a consulting to a company a few months back. That's exactly what happened. Like the CEO and founder was performing the role
of CPO.
And so like, we need a product person. So there's this concept that I wrote in my book that's called like the iron triangle, which is when you have product, engineering, and design working united like in a day-to-day to build the solution. Product will always have the product perspective, go to market and the next shiny feature out of the door. Engineering is going to, we need to refactor, we need to actually upgrade this framework, and designs. And so we have to think about the different screen size, accessibility, that's the law. So that tension is important, but that's the iron triangle. 100%. It's strong and doesn't break, and it's important to have the tension. But now when you have the CEO playing that side of the triangle, what happens is we're missing the opportunity to be meeting new customers, to understand the vision, like to actually revalidate the other areas on the organization, sales, marketing. And then companies struggle. So like make the investment of bringing like a product person. And we did. Now we have two sides of the triangle. We have product, we have engineering. I help adding these two people in that company. And now it's missing the design. Like we have like engineers and like the product actually doing, it's just
wireframing and
and it's not like when people think about the design, they think, like design how like the button was going to be on the screen. I said, no, it's about the customer journey.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the experience, but the minimum of like a delivery team, it has to have like the iron triangle. And then you can have, maybe you don't need a QA, maybe you don't need like some specialties early on. But the CEO is splitting roles on building the product, maybe in the early stage, but it's a good investment as well for the CEO, do CEO job and allow product engineering to actually build the product.
100%. And just quick side note on the design comment you made. I was working with a designer at Indeed and I was just like, hey, why are you putting this here? Why are you putting that there? Just to understand. And she was like, there's a lot of studies on what screen sizes, where are people looking, there's a lot of science behind how to make a button pop, how to incentivize a certain action, how to choose colors, where to place the button to incentivize the most click-through rate so they're going through the funnel. And before that, I was like, oh yeah, you just put it where it looks nice, right? But there's a lot of thought that goes into putting the right elements in the right place so you're highlighting the right things, making the right things on the page pop, making the right actions on the... And I didn't know until that conversation that there was all this that goes behind making a good design. And I feel like a lot of people, especially early on, you're like, yeah, let's just put something together because you're worried more about revenue, product market fit. But at some point you have to graduate to hey, we need a design philosophy and we need someone to think about who's using this so we build the right product.
Engineers can get very expensive.
Yeah.
It's a lot cheaper to come up with the concept and the flow and validate that.
Using prototypes.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper than actually go implement and then realize, yeah, this is not working. So
yeah, been there.
It's it makes sense, but companies just they keep rolling, doing, and then we need to do faster and faster. So, with time I learned just zoom out, see where you're going. If you don't zoom out, you're putting a lot of energy to propel the boat to a direction that's not where you want to be.
Yeah.
And having a designer, the formation of the iron triangle, sooner rather than later, will help you. I guarantee.
100%. Also, there's an analogy, right? If you veer off 1 degree in the wrong direction too early, down the line, that's so far off whatever your original path was that you just don't even realize. You get down this, you just did after tech debt, bad design after bad design, you just keep going down that flow. And you never have the option to reset because there's too much on stake.
Yeah. What you just said, building software it gets challenging because it's an abstract stuff. You're absolutely right. If you correct, the sooner you correct, the cheaper it will be.
Yeah.
I love going to regattas and all that kind of stuff. It's the same thing. You're racing. The only source of power is wind. Each boat can take their own route. Everyone on the team on the boat is empowered to actually, they have their contributions. But a mistake early on, you can fix that. If you go an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in a race,
too far off.
You're way several minutes, hours behind. I think software is the same thing. So many times companies tend to leave the technical debt for later. But guess what? You're gonna have to upgrade those frameworks. You don't need to be on the alpha, beta version. You just the regular GA.
Yeah.
If you don't keep catching up with that, the cost is gonna be.
And there's too many breaking changes down the line that now it's not a 1-day fix anymore. It's a 1-month fix across 7 teams, and you got to do so much.
The one thing that I always tell, it's guaranteed you're gonna have to pay. The question is, how much interest are you willing to pay?
I like that.
And I don't like to pay interest. I don't know about you, but I don't.
Yeah. You wrote the book, Building and Managing High-Performance Distributed Teams. Why did you decide to first author a book? And then what is it about building high-performance distributed teams that you think people miss very often that you're trying to capture in the book?
Yeah. So I wrote this book during the pandemic. At that time, so we got acquired by Vista Private Equity. This is the 6th largest private equity at the time in the world. They have their playbook. So they acquired us. And that was Thanksgiving time.
2020 Thanksgiving?
That was 2019, because then 2020, that's when the pandemic came, right?
Yeah.
So November to February, March, when the pandemic, all the airports start to close and all that kind of stuff. From that time, those couple of months were very challenging. So I got a spreadsheet with names that I have to lay off. Criteria, they are remote. I said, what do you mean? I cannot fire these people. I mean, this is my chief architect, my head QA, and by the way, we're a distributed teams. How can I actually have no, we have to find synergies. I understand as you actually acquire companies, you have to find synergies where like, you don't need certain roles and all that kind of stuff. I was very passionate and very proud. It was at the time the best team that I ever built. Like we got like to the point that we've been acquired and all those things are great. But the decisions, the top-down decisions, just for the sake of actually running the playbook, it really, really hit my heart. That's why I have my sayings, one team, one heart. I said like, I brought this team up here and I will be the first to fight and die if it's necessary.
Yeah.
But I can bend, but I will not break.
Yeah.
And I was so frustrated at times, so angry at the times, because I knew that the decision was wrong.
Yeah.
And I fought so hard for it. But I had to put that energy somewhere.
Yeah.
Many leaders, remember that I talked like about one leader that he was a product engineer.
Yeah.
He calls me on like in February of that year, when the pandemic was starting, like people are trying to figure out how do you actually build a team that is not in the office. So I got like another friend is a professor of NYU. He calls me. These people are calling me to ask my advice on how to make a team that is not in a centralized office to work.
Yeah.
I said, people are calling me, like people that I admire, that are very successful, are calling me. And then I'm actually on mix of that challenge, that frustration of taking like the playbook. I said, oh my goodness, you know what? And then they would say like, Alberto, you should write a book. I said, come on. I can even barely finish a sentence in English if that works. At the end of that week on a Saturday morning, I remember as it was yesterday, I woke up like I couldn't sleep that well. When I woke up like 5 a.m. or so, I opened Google Docs and I started to put a structure on what that would look like.
Nice.
That's when I started actually writing the book. From beginning to end, it took me 6 months to write. I really opened like my mind and my heart and I dumped everything there. Talk with friends for reviewing and I had like so much passion and so much energy. But because of the pandemic came, that team that was supposed to be, many people that were supposed to be laid off, we had to scale 800% during the pandemic. If we actually have made the decisions that to follow the playbook, we would have failed.
Yeah.
We would have failed. There was many cases where looking at the data and the metrics, I knew that on Monday morning, the application would crash. We would be downtime. We would not be able to handle. Friday, 4 p.m., I called a meeting with the entire product engineering team and say, listen, we brought this company up here. There's a lot of kids going homeschooling and they need Schoology. If we do nothing, we will crash. And I'm not asking you to work in the weekends, but if you want to help me to actually get this application up and running, we will have to make change. So all I'm asking is like, any volunteers? And I'm telling you the facts. Man, that weekend, I actually can feel the bumps. Every single person showed up and we worked like what was necessary to make that happen. That is the culture. When people feel they belong, when people were part of it. And that gave me so much energy. And that's when I pushed the book to be published. I never did that before. I'd even it was a book written with like technical knowledge, but it was also during a moment of my life that I had to put that somewhere. And that, of course, makes me really proud and aspects that I try to bring. That human connection, that feeling that people fighting because they believe it and they care about the product, that is an aspect of like the distributed team that is really, really challenged to have.
100%. And I feel like it's very, with the amount of layoffs happening in the last year and a half, a lot of employees are now distancing themselves from the idea of really being tied to the vision. It's, I think, a lot harder now to get someone to be so bought in. And I feel like that's so leader specific. I think it doesn't matter as much about what the company is or what the product is. It's about the leader who's building the team that really has to fight to get everyone on the same page. Because a lot of people now are like, if stuff doesn't work out, you're just going to lay me off. So why should I go all in? Why should I put in the extra effort? Why should I be so motivated about this if the company doesn't feel the same way? And I feel like that's a very leadership-driven sentiment that has to be given to the team, the employees, and everyone.
I saw one post another day on LinkedIn that said companies, stop saying that we are family. I understand the sentiment. A company must be a sustainable business.
Yeah.
Companies many times have to do hard decisions. A business is made of like hard decisions. If you're not having like hard decisions, you're probably missing something. But it's a relationship as any other. When you get a job, it's like it's as any other relationship. You have to put energy into that relationship. If you don't water the plant, it will die. If you don't water your friendship relationship, it will die. It will just go away.
Yeah.
So
It'll fizzle out, yeah.
It's the same thing. So if you are like, we spend a lot of our time in life working. You must love what you do.
100%.
If you really don't, I tell people, I help you to find a new job. I will help you. But don't waste your time just being in a place. I always will pick challenge over comfort. And that's my recommendation to people, because life at the end of the day is too short for not being there. And now, yes, it's up to the leaders, but you're not required to stay there. 100%. If you don't align with the leaders, if you don't agree, the worst thing you can do is to complain.
Yeah.
You're putting energy to nothing.
100%.
Either you drive the change or you accept it.
Yeah.
So
I was watching something the other day where someone said, folks are really protective of their money. They'll put in a safe, put in a bank, protect it. But they don't protect their time. And they'll spend their time on anything and everything. And they'll waste their time here and there, not understanding that you don't get more of it. Like there's a very limited amount of time that you have, whatever it be, right? So like you're saying, how do you spend it on the things that matter? How do you be more intentional about your job, your work, your family? How do you just do the things you want to do and not just while away doing a job that you're like checked out of?
Yeah. Some people realize that a little later in life. Some people realize that a lot earlier in life. Some people never realize.
Yeah.
They're just there doing because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
And many times it's not the leader or the company challenge. It's you.
Yeah.
Right? You expect to get everything from the company, but how much are you giving? How much are you actually contributing? How much feedback are you giving to make that better? When you are complaining about something not working, what alternatives are you bringing to the table to fix it? What are you doing for it to fix? And I tell, like, when people come bringing me like challenge, give me at least 2-3 options. Because just bringing me problems, yeah, sure, that's easy.
Yeah.
But can you do that?
Yeah.
That is, again, going back to that's building the culture.
100%.
And that is empowerment. I'm actually willing to listen to the ideas and how we can do this better. We can change anything. We can change. But don't expect me to know all the answers. I'm a human as well.
100%. I was working at a startup where product leader would come and be like, hey, let's not do this. Or this is not the right thing. Or we had the liberty to figure out what tests we want to run, what features we want to build. They'd come and say, nah, I'm summarizing, but they'd be like, hey, I don't think that's the right thing to do. And my response would be like, hey, you keep shooting down ideas week after week, which is fine. I'm not saying keep my ideas. But if you shoot down every idea the team's coming up with, at least give me 1 or 2 directions to go on. Because obviously we're thinking on a very different line than you are, which is, again, fine. But if you're not liking the direction, at least tell me, hey, I'm thinking more along this line or this line or this line, so we can then work towards that. But if you just keep shooting down the ideas, eventually I run out of ideas. No one moves anywhere. We've spent weeks trying to figure stuff out. 100% agree with what you're saying. If you have a problem with something, come with options and not just, hey, that's wrong. Because I don't think that helps anyone.
Yeah. When you keep having those discussions and just you can't move your product Like you can actually move forward. That's why like the analogy I make, like you're literally on the boat, like just going in circles.
Yeah.
When that happens, there's a question that I always ask my teams. What is our goal? What is our North Star? Where are we going? We have several milestones. There's so many paths for us to achieve that goal. But let's zoom out. Let's understand what's our goal for this conversation, for this quarter, for this year, for like where we are taking the company. And just by asking that simple question, what are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to get from here that will allow us to achieve this goal? People say, oh, yeah. That conversation even becomes irrelevant quite often. Yeah. So I think always connecting the discussions to the goal.
100%.
Everything that you do has to make you to get closer for that goal.
Yeah.
If not, don't waste time.
100%.
It's just like
100%.
Yeah.
I like to end all conversations with a couple quick fire questions. What are 3 resources you'd recommend to folks who are early in their journey building out teams, company startups? Do you have 3 resource recommendations? They should be books, podcasts, blogs, article, whatever.
Yeah, not sure if I will have like the 3 on the top of my head, but here's what I would, that I always did and always helped me. It's like, don't stay home. Find like a meetup near you. I go to like CTO events or leadership events whenever I can. We were talking, like last week I was on the CTO Craft in London, and I'm going to be in New York next week.
Nice.
I love the face-to-face interactions. I go to just different ones all the time.
Nice.
Now I'm going to start listening to your podcast. But other than that, it's my recommendation. There's a couple of books that I can think that I really like. One is The Scale Up. Another one that I used, I changed it a lot, but it's called like the Who book, which is the whole idea is to hire people based on who they are versus how they can show up in like in an interview. So there's a couple of books like that, but of course my own book.
Yeah, and we'll link everything and we'll...
But there's another one that is actually from a friend of mine. It's called like also Lean Inception. A really, really nice one. So
nice. What's your tech or startup stack? What do you use to run your orgs and run your teams? And when I say startup stack, I mean Jira, Atlassian, GitHub. Like, what's your full tool stack?
Everything that you said. Like, for my preference is definitely like language. I don't have a preference. I mean, as a CTO, it's whatever. I already worked with PHP, Java, mainframe stack, Microsoft, you name it. But my preference is, regardless of the languages, everything on the cloud, nothing on premises. It would be from GitHub, GitLab, as long as it's one of them, not all of them. That's my preferred stack. It's not 5, 4, 3, any number more than 1, 2 that do the same thing. Just pick one. And if you have 2, converge that into one. So, but between GitHub, AWS, all the cloud, I work with Azure as well. Try to avoid like multi-cloud. Just pick one. But sometimes you can't. In those cases,
those are exceptions, though.
Those are exceptions. I mean, if you have a customer like Walmart, they don't want to be in AWS. And then for like documenting Confluence, like all that Atlassian stack, I think it's great. Nice. People complain like, oh, Jira is like, no, it's because you're not administrating Jira correctly. If 100%. You do that correctly, you're going to be fine.
And that's a full-time job in itself.
It is. You have to put the workflows, the check and balances. I'm actually doing this like in my new job now, but that's my preferred stack.
Nice.
The one thing I would say about tools is like less is more. You don't try to solve your problems. You're like putting another tool. You don't need it. You don't need it. It becomes a nightmare. So the less, the better.
100%. What would you say is your support system? So you've been leading teams, building so much, writing a book. What's your support system? What allows you to be so successful and driven? I think it's my endless energy. I do have a lot of energy.
but it's about having focus.
Yeah.
If you look at my career, it's always being like a step up. Consistency is key. I think like one of my strengths is I don't give up. Like my previous job, it was one of like the most challenging ones. When I left, the company was profitable. The team is a very, very oiled machine to the point that I actually can step out and there's no difference. So to get to that point, many, many, many times I thought giving up. So my support is like, if I say I will do something, I will do it.
Nice.
Even though many times I'm struggling. But every time you struggle, every challenge you have, once you actually overcome that, you look back, the feeling of achievement is so good.
You like getting over the hill, but the journey to get up.
Oh, that is fabulous. Like the feeling that we have. And many times, nothing is easy because if it's easy, we will not have that same feeling of achievement.
Part of the reason I started this podcast is I feel like entrepreneurs are always looking for the quick win, the quick exit, the quick payday. They're not ready for the 5-10 year journey that's going to take to build a successful, profitable company. A lot of people are like, oh, do this and then, sell in 2 years. I'm like, that's very unrealistic. And if that's what you want to do, just go get a tech job. Don't do entrepreneurship for a payday. Don't do it for an outcome. Do it for the journey, because the journey is what you're going to be doing most of the time.
And you have to enjoy the journey because it's a long one.
100%.
It's a long one. So if you're not enjoying the journey, it's rough.
Yeah.
Even when things go wrong, you have to be okay with it. Know that's part of it. Learn from it, and that's what's going to make you successful. That's I agree with you.
I like ending every conversation with the last question. So I'll ask you one for a future guest. I asked my previous guest for a question, and your question is, if you had to do something non-technical outside of your professional job or capacity, what would you do and why?
My passion is to be on the water. I love just everything about it. If you look at the cover of my book, it's like boats.
Okay.
So for me, being on the water, if I wasn't doing anything on tech, I would be something with building teams on the water, like organizing events, regattas, or like anything around that.
Nice.
That's probably what I still probably gonna do that after my daughter is self-sufficient. Yeah. Probably that's one of the things that I'm gonna be doing.
Nice.
I can't think of the idea of retiring. So I think my retirement is gonna be doing the same in a different field, on the water. Yes.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What's your question for a future guest?
The question, let me think about here. When I talk about resilience and persistency, and people ask me what made you to have this? Can you learn how to be persistent? Can you learn to not give up? If yes, what do you do? When you're in a very challenging situation, how can you learn to not give up and overcome that? Is there a technique? Is there a way of doing that? Or you're born with that? Or is that defined in your childhood?
Makes sense.
It's a tough...
how do you persevere over an obstacle, and what's your go-to path?
Yeah, because I think there's a lot to do with your childhood and where you came from, but can you teach that? It's a tough one. I don't know the answer, but...
yeah. We'll see. I don't know who I have on next, but we'll ask them that.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Where can listeners find you? What do you want to plug? And we'll link everything in the description, but...
yeah, the best way to reach out to me through LinkedIn. Yeah. I always try to reply to every single message, connect, and that's all. Thank you very much.
We'll link your book, link your website, and if someone reaches out, I'll send them a copy of your book.
Beautiful. And please leave me a review on Amazon. Every review counts. One review at a time.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for tuning into Funds and Founders. If you're a local Austin founder, a venture capitalist, or just someone who's building and in the middle of their journey and would like to be featured on an upcoming episode, submit your guest pitch to abhinavsinha.podcast@gmail.com. If you have a founder-specific event you'd like to promote on the podcast, you can also reach out to me. If you want to continue to get support through your founder journey, hit the follow button and I'll see you in the next episode.